Hey everybody, it's Eric Balance coming to you with the Resilient Minds podcast, where I feature beautiful entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts in their field, where they help us discover their X factor, their experience of life, only to discover how they were able to accomplish and find out their Y factor, their big why, their purpose in life. So join me as we get to discover the beauty of our minds and how can we really continue to go after the biggest and most wildest dreams while we continue to pursue and manifest our greatest intelligence that comes from the heart. Also, if you haven't, go check out the new alignment course that I've created at www.ericbalance.com/alignment, ALIGNMENT. See you on the show. Welcome everyone to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm sitting here with a wonderful, amazing entrepreneur, Ba. Is it Barbara better or Ba? What do you prefer?
Ba, please, Ba, and it's Minuzzi.
Amazing, and Minuzzi. So, Ba, honestly, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to spend time really diving deep into your journey and how this intentional, work that you're creating. But for those that don't know, Ba has spent, almost a decade really working on, her own venture capital experience, but really coming from fashion and then a little bit into real estate and then transitioning into this venture capital world. And what I've learned is, and this US-based multifamily office, that you've really grown, coming from the south of Brazil, you've really worked hard to build up, connection, to build up your asset management company and really managing these different assets for different celebrities, athletes, and using Umana family as really the forefront of bridging impact and collaborative experiences to really helping people recognize the importance as yield beyond money. So this is really beautiful, and I think you're brilliant, and I have so many questions, and I'm so excited to learn. And yeah, so thank you for coming on first and foremost.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. I really appreciate you having me today. I'm looking forward for this conversation and share more about what we're up to. So it's your show. You lead it. Good for you.
So first and foremost, coming from Brazil and really being curious and excited, what transitioned you from really going, from fashion and really having, because you have this beauty of fashion and you look amazing, but the most important thing was like, okay, what made you curious to change this area, to transition into this, and take this knowledge, this awareness, this drive, and put it into something that really, is being used as a force for good right now?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So for me, it's all about purpose. And I'm very happy that even not knowing, like when I was younger, but that I was always being guided by my purpose. So it was never about financial wealth. It was never only about the achievements. I always loved a good challenge. So the more I was challenged, the more I liked it. But it was actually because there was a big purpose, a big meaning on whatever I was doing. So it didn't feel that hard to do things because of the meaning, And it's funny because a lot of people see what I've done and were very close to me on my journey, of becoming who I'm becoming. And they were always feeling so excited, but like so scared for me, like, oh my God, like everything is so hard, it's so challenging, it's so unknown, it's so uncertain. And I never had that. And I think entrepreneurs in general, they have that heart and soul that is so driven by their meaning that they just go with the flow and with some like real hustle, but they go do it, and then things get way easier. And that's the word, like purpose. I went from fashion to real estate to venture capital and now this holistic wealth management just because of purpose. It just kept evolving, but it was always something bigger than myself always something that was about providing to others. When it was fashion, was like conscious fashion, you know, I knew we needed to be more grounded on the way we consume and on the way we produce. So I was 20 years old, like as a woman in south of Brazil, you don't have a lot of benchmarks. Fashion is something that probably all women on earth can relate, because we get dressed, you know, we like getting like some style on. So it's just as a young founder, like a young entrepreneur, that was the benchmark I had, you know, and I think one step back, I started volunteering very young, like I was 13, 15 when I was already like at the hospital. So for a few years I was working, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Again, the meaning first, and I was like, I started volunteering because there was a meaning and I was going there. And then when my first kids passed away, I was devastated, but just like devastated. My parents are doctors, so are my siblings. I talked to them, I was like, I don't think I can do medicine. That's not for me. They're like, no, we'll go away with time, you know. I was like, no, it's me. I know how I am. I know how I'm feeling. And this will not go away. I'm not a person who can devote time, get super in love with someone and see them going at such a young age. You know, I was, imagine 13, 15, they were 7, 10. For me, it was the definition of unfairness. And I didn't want to be in a world that was unfair. I wanted to understand how I could use my superpowers to make it more fair. And that's when I started, like, to get to fashion was first like the fundraising to the hospital. I started fundraising for the hospital. I understood I could provide financial assistance to the hospital just by like selling t-shirts, like doing things, you know. And I was like, wow, okay, I'll still be helping them. I'll be providing. I can still go play with the kids, you know. I don't need to not go. But I need to understand that will not be my core thing at the hospital. It's not just by going and serving and playing with them. I can do a way more just by using my superpower. So at a very young age, like I found the meaning, I found like tools, and then it just, but then because you can't connect the dots looking forward, right? You just start doing things that I'll try this and I'll try that. Now I know exactly what happened in my journey, you know, but back then it felt very, so unknown, you know. And I remember like going from fashion to investment, it felt that I was doing exactly what I shouldn't be doing, you know. I was betraying the path.
Adventure, like an adventure.
Yes.
So as you went on this adventure, because I think that there's a lot of trust that you curated within yourself, right? And so this foundation comes from somewhere. And, you know, it's funny because we kind of, before we got on the call, we're talking about family and things like this. So I'm curious to know this type of foundation, this type of like really core structure and what it means to you. How important was that for you to identify with, like, hey, I can go out there and like put myself in total adventurous and uncertain environments, but the real certainty was coming from here, was coming from who I am. And that was the thing that what I see personally, as you're explaining, they're like this tremendous trust and influence that you were able to activate within yourself. So can you help me understand, or help anybody that's how you were able to cultivate that from such a young, you know, being such a young woman, and then how do you continue work on that level of influence as you go through?
I love that question because it's all about the foundation. And even in one of my first journeys with mushrooms, like the answer came so clearly, but things that I knew already, which was I was raised in such a strong foundation of love. There was so much unconditional love at my family, being that from my siblings or my parents or cousins, whatever, like there was so much love around me. And that made me very confident, you know, like my father, I think he plays a very important role because he was always my fan. I have 2 brothers. I was like the middle child. And
I have 2 sisters. It's so funny.
Oh, really? We're exactly the opposite. I love that.
Yeah.
It brings balance, you know, and strength. I don't, like, in different ways, right? Like you probably got your feminine soul touched from a very young age. My masculine soul was touched from a very young age. So it was easy for me to be aggressive, you know, to do things on way that the other girls were not doing, because I liked to compete. I liked to play soccer. I was always playing with the boys, you know, so that made me very comfortable in this type of setup, which probably you feel very comfortable with the more feminine energy, right? And which is so good for guys, you know. So and so from the foundation of love, and also like from a lot of masculine energy, all over, like my cousin, I only had one woman cousin, everyone else was a guy. My brothers, our neighbors, like you played together as a kid, right? So it's like 15 boys and Ba, you know. So I got used, and as you start making your choices, I still had like my guy friends as my best friends, and my mom always pushing me to be more feminine and more girly, because suddenly I was 10 years old, and then I was 12, and I was still hanging out too much with the boys. 13, I changed for their concern, because that's when I started partying and I wanted to be girly, and I was like, oh, you shouldn't have asked for that, because now you have it. And I had a blast with my parents, like they had to, all this energy. Imagine a 13-year-old girl with all the aggressiveness and confidence and on. It was not a good combo for any parent, but I'm glad I channeled also like for good things that helped me become who I became. But it was a challenging time for my parents, because I thought I knew everything, and I thought I could do everything. So,
And you are, by the way, right? So this is, I think, it's channeled into the next 2 decades of your life, right? I mean, you know, today you're channeling this, you know, I'm certain you're at this place where it's so conscious now, where you know that your energy is like it lights up a room, and as a result of that, you're able to funnel and attract a lot of different energy around you, so that you're able to do that. And I think that this is a very encouraging, you know, understanding for a lot of women, men, you know, entrepreneurs, because in a world that we're so consistently focused on going out there to make things happen, it's really beautiful to help people see that it's actually about knowing who you are, and things start happening for you. And so tell me about this kind of, as you kind of, you know, drove into fashion and into real estate, this transition, this constant growth, right? As you evolved into your own internal journey, and knowing how to channel that, what was it that helped you identify this grounding purpose? Because, you know, there's people that do a lot of this deeper work, but they don't know how to ground into an entrepreneurial vision where it actually starts to create the abundance around not just them, but the people that they really want to help. And I think that this is something like in the conscious realm, you know, whether you're in Brazil or around the world, it doesn't matter. People are struggling, I think, with how to ground their ideals, their energy, their awareness. And I think you've done an amazing job at it. So maybe this is something that you would be okay with sharing.
Yes, of course. I believe the biggest challenge I had in life was to surrender. So was exactly like this acceptance of first realize, oh yeah, I have all the power, I have all the energy, I'm a vessel, you know, I can do all these things because it's not me, it's through me, you know. So realizing that was a big challenge, because I thought it was on me, and like, oh, if I'm responsible, I can do it, and then things will get done. And I struggled a lot, because as a leader, if people were not meeting deadlines, if people were not going on my pace, and normally founders have an insane fast pace, which is not fair with people who didn't choose to be an entrepreneur. You know, it's a different type of mindset that is operating like 24 hours. And our 24 hours are probably like 30 hours. Like, I don't know how we do it, but it's like that. So it's very unfair with people to expect them to be the same way you are when you were creating something you envisioned, you know, and then you need to invite them to be part of that vision. So my first challenge was that, like, not understanding that people come from different lives and different skills and different skills, superpowers, but also different meanings. So the reason why they joined me was a little bit different on the reason like why I started this. So those things were very important for me to understand, to then respect and understand that I was just, because then I really asked myself, like, why I keep winning, you know, why things keep coming to me, why I keep thriving. And then I got the answers like, it's not you, it's just through you. You've been lucky enough, like that this life you've accepted to go further, to go through the challenges. And then yes, things happen to you that are very good. So just embrace that is not you. You're just having a chance to channel that and do the best with it. You know, I was like, oh, okay, I can live with that and I can work with that. And as I really, and it's a process, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I understand the message and now I'll do it. I keep getting the message, you know, I was like, oh, okay, I need, and the grounding comes from that. I was like, let me just ground myself. And grounding comes from multiple tools, can be meditating, can be walking meditation, can be breath work, can be cardio. Like there's so many different phases of my life. The grounding looked totally different, but it was always a grounding because you get the downloads, you know, you get your messages and you know you are doing it right or not. So getting the messages, grounding, and surrendering to what's coming, because I think that's for any leader, for any person who loves having control, that's the most challenging part, to understand that you're just a piece of the puzzle and things will happen with or without you. You might be the lucky one to accept being the vessel and then thrive with whatever you were meant to achieve, you know.
Wow. I think that's great advice. I think sometimes I know myself personally, like I'm as I'm transitioning into my own journey, it's like it's very, I used to be very like, let's go make things happen. And so this surrendering that you're suggesting, I think is a very
It's
important
hard, but it's
tool.
good.
So hard. It's so hard because the world is sharing how you're supposed to really make impact, or how you're supposed to transition, how you're supposed to, you know, create change. And you know, you have this deep desire within yourself to go out and make it happen. And so for me, as you're explaining this, it's beautiful because, you know, things are also happening and coming, but it's about the patience as well and the surrender. And so there's a lot of things there for me that you know, I think being around my parents has also really helped me. And these, like you said, the foundation of love, it gives us this ability to just like be okay with it and know where we're going to channel our energy. So with this, actually, you know, this surrender, how was it that, if anybody, like, you know, you decided to go into investment on, you know, entrepreneurship, and how is it that you just got started? Did you start communicating with people? Did you start asking questions? Did you just start and you kind of figure it out along the way? What was that path like, and how did you step into that with influence that allowed you to just kind of say, I'm going to figure it out, and I don't know how, but I'm going to figure it out? So maybe if you can explain a little bit about that journey.
Yes, so there's a lot of the I'll figure it out, like always in my life. I was always learning and teaching myself, and with technology and just connecting with people was always like a blast to me, a blessing to me. So it was really good. And then I think it started very young, when I was 13. So when I started like partying and became that little devil to my parents, like my parents were they were full of rules because of my older brother. So I would need to be at home at 11 p.m., you know, so during summer at the beach, and everyone would be back home at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. It's Brazil. It's not like here people go earlier home. Brazil, no, like, and the young ones would go to 3, like older, like my brother would go back home at 7 a.m., you know, so like being at home at 11 p.m. was devastating. It was just like so out of this world. It was delusional. It made no sense. It was against my own rules. So I started running away, you know, like I would come back home at 10:30, go to bed, pretend, jump the window and go back to the party, and come back at 7 a.m. running at the beach and inviting my parents to come run to the beach because it was time to exercise. And they were so proud of me. They're like, wow, Ba's back, like she's running, well, let's go with her. And I was feeling so guilty because it was the first time that I was lying for my parents, and I was lying for a whole summer But at the beginning, it was sad, but then it got really nice because I was having like the best time of my life, going to the parties and like, meeting everyone. But that was my first like discovery of life in so many ways, of values and what you should do or not. Because when my father discovered all those runs and walks that he used to do, he invited me, like I knew he knew, and he was like, let's go on a walk. And we went on a walk, and it was almost 2 hours walk that he didn't say a word. And I was crying internally, like insanely. And when I got back home, I was crying for real, like for hours and hours, like, oh my God, I disappointed the person I care the most, I love the most, for what? Like to go in a few parties and do and that. It was like, it was just so important. And it's so clear until this day, like that walk, and how he was feeling, because you could feel it. He didn't need to say anything. And he never said, like, it was clear from that walk that I did it wrong and I needed to fix. So I went back to my hometown, like from the beach to Porto Alegre, and I started working for them. I started to being their secretary, their assistant, like a chief of staff kind of thing on their business. And by learning about their financials and their things, that was my first awakening. I was like, wow, my parents know nothing about accounting and numbers. I'll just do some courses. So I started like learning, started creating my first business plan. I created when I was 13, I think, 13 years old. And I showed to my father, I wanted to create a diagnostic lab in their clinic. And my father was like, first, I never heard about a business plan. Second, now you're not doing, you're 13 years old. And third, like you don't have the money. You need to make your own money to start building your own businesses. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. So that's how it starts. Very young, you start seeing like weaknesses and things, and you start asking. And the only thing, of course, I didn't know, I was really seeing weaknesses on my parents' businesses that it took them another like 15 years to truly solve. But at the time I thought it was a little nuts, because like, oh, I'm so young, maybe I'm wrong, like maybe they're right. And actually no, like they were wrong. And I started seeing things very clearly in business wise at a very young age, So, and then from that, like the whole hospital thing was just an advancement, because then I started working and I really enjoyed. They didn't pay me. It was just there, but I was learning. I was like, oh, if I'm doing this, I should do more like with my time. I should start volunteering. I should do other things aside from school, and then things came together, as I mentioned before. But it was from a punishment and understanding like what was right or wrong, that my entire career kicked off like at a young age, and all this willingness and curiosity to do more, and just learn.
I think this curiosity is something that also allows you to then, now with what your current role is with the family offices, it really allows you to look at the right projects too. So, this curiosity about what's the project, how you're researching, how it's actually doing, good things for humanity. So this yield beyond money. I think this is something that, I really resonate with at a deep level, because, it is about what is channeled through us so that we can actually leave this world behind better than we found it. Because I really believe that the way we do one thing is the way that we do everything. And so integrity is a very high value for me. And so if I'm able to leave this conversation or this place or, this life better than when I found it, then I've lived my ultimate value. Now, I'm still figuring out things that I definitely am excited to learn, as I continue to, follow your journey and appreciate what you're building. And I'm curious to know how, when you're looking at these, dynamics of what's out there, and I know that you and Adrian are really spending a lot of time doing this maybe together, but the most important thing I think is like, what allows you to do this proper research? Because this curiosity, I think, is the number one experience that allows you to ask the right questions, be really innocent, and gives you this dynamic of saying, hey, how are you separate from a different project, and why would I want to invest, the office's funds to this project, and what is your metrics for finding and making sure that these people are wanting to truly come from this place, from this heart-centered place, that I really feel that you're really at, you know, like it's a really big foundation for you. I don't know if that's a clear question, but
it's wonderful question, and it will be a long answer because you touched so many points that I'll give like an overview of all the things here. So first, what I love about Yield Beyond Money is that's specifically like and I love having missions per project. Let's put that way, you know, like, so that's our mission for the contract, which is my fund with Adrian here. And Yield Beyond Money came from Adrian. Like, we've spent a lot of time brainstorming, like, what is the contract for us? But and the contract is his nickname, right? The contract means rebel in Portuguese, from Brazil. So
I didn't know that. Amazing.
Yeah, it's someone who goes against the rules, the systems, questions everything, you know. And so he always had that nickname even before meeting, like before we know each other. So when he told about his nickname, I was like, if we ever do a project together, it will be named the Contra. And the thing I do at Umana, the family office, is our mission at Umana is redefining wealth. And we're redefining wealth together, which means we don't believe wealth is about financial wealth. We think financial wealth is only one of the wheels of our happiness, our full wealth, you know. So Adrian is one of our family members and one of the founding family members, like the first celebrity I worked with. And he's a phenomenal person to work with. And also, we don't call ourselves, like, we don't call him a client. We always call a family member, and we call ourselves family by conscious choice, because
I love it.
Like, we love family, and sometimes like family by blood can be great, but the family we create along life that is by our conscious choice is so special, you know. And so Adrian is one of them, and like redefining wealth go through their whole spectrum, right? Like, where is your revenue coming from? Like, where's your income coming from? Where are you spending your money? Where are you investing? Like, it goes through everything related to finance too, because money is a very powerful tool, and that's something Adrian and I always talk, and it always depends on like who is holding, right? Like how you channel that energy, that power to do better, instead of just spending or mistreating or denying. So a lot of my work with Adrian and the family members is really to understand our values, to know what we stand for, what are our causes. So we channel our financial wealth accordingly. We create more that also aligns with everything we want in life. If we want more, everyone wants more happiness, right? But like, if you want more time in nature, if you want more time with family, like everything needs to come together instead of living for later or maybe one day. So that's what I do. And then the Contra, like creating like that project as part of his wealth redefinition, was like, okay, he was a VC already. He was investing in startups. He loves impact investing. He has been an activist. He hates the word activist, but he has been involved with the philanthropic world for like a long time and founder of a nonprofit. So it was missing like to really be a VC and be backing companies, as he was already an angel investor. So the contract came out of that. And then Yield Beyond Money is exactly because the more he got to navigate the industry, more frustrated he was with like, wow, like everyone is only caring about IRR, and there's just like this obsession about more financial returns for what, you know. And him especially, he has a lot of friends who are like big time VCs and some like billionaire founders, you know, like a bunch of unicorn type of guys around him. So he was just like, you know, I don't get it. Like, why people only focus on IRR? I want a new metric. I want Yield Beyond Money. I want people to join our fund, just like Umana, like as family, that when we're analyzing an investment, we're actually thinking, we will spend a whole weekend and a whole week at the farm with them. And his mind works through the farm right now that he's a farmer. So it's like, yeah, that's a great first analysis when we're like checking a founder. Of course, his or her management skills and their ability to like lead this business and the market, everything is super important. Like, we're not signing an investment in something that is not a good investment per se, but there's a way more than that. Like, we want to make sure the experience will be good for both sides, that they will have a great time with us at the farm, the same way we'll have a great time with them. that will be part of each other's involvement and growth, you know, and then with that, they become better leaders. So their companies become like role models for the industry, you know. And so sometimes some people see companies in our portfolio, they're like, oh, that doesn't seem like impact investing. But there's some founders that you know, or like you feel like you know, that they will achieve the unicorn status. And that means like another super powerhouse with leaders that can be great or not. So if they are part of our family, if they're part of our journey, there's huge chances that we have influence in each other and that we will have a positive impact in the end, instead of not backing a great founder who needs some coaching, you know, just because it's not like a solar panel for Brazil, you know. There's things that can be extremely impactful. There's not just the business model, you know, or the product. So that's how we
I
see
love
it.
it. Yeah, I love
long answer.
So it's really about value, you know, it's really about and it's not about the value that like they currently have. It's about their future value because of their value principles, the way that they kind of are ultimately, you know, founded within themselves. And so this is a really beautiful way of committing to somebody. Do you feel like more people or more offices or more venture capitalists would be interested in projects, in founders, if they took the time, if the projects or founders took the time to work on their own principles and their own values, to look at how they can really cultivate a yield beyond money? Or do you feel like investors or other investors, other offices out there are only focused on this, you know, bottom line, this IRR?
I think, yeah, big yes, the answer. Like everyone would benefit if they spend more time defining their value. Like I love Ray Dalio, like he's a hedge fund guy, like massive. And he talks about principles that's a very, very pragmatic way of thinking of your values and being a great leader, and still be thinking about the results in a way that maybe a lot of founders will resonate more than going to the more like holistic and conscious words and mindfulness and on, you know, like Ray Dalio he was doing because he finally like passed leadership to, I don't know who's the new person, but I know he finally.
He had two co-CEOs at one point, and him like being the CIO and was like still coaching them. I think it was for like almost nearly a decade.
50 years, no? I thought it was, I think it's more. I think it's like, I don't know, I think it's a long time. Yeah, maybe a decade, but maybe.
No, but as a co-CEO, so like even on the back end, he was like extremely like coaching, you know, before he completely, I think he's very involved. I mean, I think he's very involved. But like, yeah, you're right. I mean, Bridgewater's been around for 5-6 decades. I mean, he's a brilliant mind. And Ray Dalio, I have the book right here. I'm always like reading it, writing. But you're right, this pragmatic, this philosophy, this importance of like really utilizing these principles and identifying, but I mean, not but is not the right word. And do you feel there could be more of this type of philosophy like you're bringing to the table? Because I mean, I don't know if I see enough of it. And maybe it's just my limited perspective. It's possible that I don't have the bird's eye view, but.
No, you're 100% right. There's not many people doing what I do, you know, or with the approach or the willingness to guide folks to do better with their financial wealth, especially because, as I said, like we have many wheels in our life, like, and financial wealth being only one of them, but financial wealth being a super important pillar to give you freedom, you know, confidence, to give back. Like there's just so much around financial wealth, and people who do have the power to help folks with their financial wealth, they care very little. Like they care very little about understanding the principles, the values of this person, of like, they have like these questionnaires, you know, but it's just so business oriented and financially oriented that there's no real questions about the person. Like when I'm onboarding a family member, the first interview is a 3 hours interview, that they normally cry, which is like a lot happens, you know, in that first conversation. And most of the family members are not like we call extended family. Most of like the extended family members is because I can't onboard every person that I interview, you know, like it's a very intimate relationship, and you spend a lot of time with these family members, just like family by blood. When we're working on something, like you will spend time, you know, so I can't onboard everyone. So we have the extended family, and it's crazy because I know more things about some of the extended family members just by that first interview than their husbands or wives and parents, you know, because people don't talk about things that are so important about themselves. They don't develop intimacy. They don't communicate like things that are very basic of your foundation, you know, then you understand what your values are. So a lot of people, they just have no clue because no one is asking them questions and they're not asking themselves. And I do think finance, and that's like my biggest belief. That's why redefining wealth. I think if people treated their money by their, like followed, like guided by their values, they will do so much better. But asking first what your values truly are, instead of just thinking you are channeling by your values without spending any time asking and creating a process, a strategy to that, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that there's a foundational understanding when, if people with this like massive amount of wealth, if they understand what there really is meaningful to them, they'll be able to really contribute that energy, right? The right way. I mean, right is subjective, but the way that feels very more important to them.
But a right way for them. That's what I always say, like, what is right for you, it's not for me. And there's like things that of course are more obvious that if you are not seeing, I can help you seeing it, you know. But there's a lot of things that it's really like we will see things differently, and that's okay. That's your reality. That's the way you see it. That's how you stand for. That's totally fine. Like we need to meet people where they are, and they will teach us along the way too, because things that we believe are right or should be done in a certain way, soon enough, by spending time with other folks who will influence like your own way of seeing things, will change, you know, it will evolve.
This is something beautiful that you just said. You know, we teach, but we also learn. So tell me this philosophy, because, you know, I always love being curious, and it's nice to also be mirrored back this by you. This student teacher experience of life, because we're always teaching and learning from each other. And I think this is something that many of us, like, we didn't know that we didn't know that we didn't, you know what I mean? Like it's not something is consciously being communicated. And you know, especially when we're at these events or we're speaking at events, you know, it's like you can learn from every person that's on the stage or speaking, even though if you're one of the speakers, right? Like you can learn from everybody that's around you in every conversation and every reality. And so how has this allowed you, because this is, I think, a huge part of your ability to navigate and trust, is by looking at the mirror that's allowing you to really communicate oftentimes with you. But it's about paying attention a lot more than it is about speaking. So tell me about this, because I'm curious what you feel.
I'm a listener. I'm a great listener. I love listening. I love learning about people, you know. I love understanding where they come from, what's happening in their lives, how they became what they become. So like it's just fascinating to me. And a lot of people have zero patience to listen. They just want to, especially when we're working with people who have achieved a lot. There's a lot of people that just want to show they're as good as them, you know, and they just can't stop talking. And on my interactions with the family members and I'm always listening. It's very rare that I'll be sharing about anything that's going on in my life. They are very specific with the questions, like they do. Of course, after years and years, like things change a bit, but in the beginning, and probably like the first 2 years of the relationship, it's always myself listening and learning so much and evolving from every single conversation. Like every single one of them, they think I'm there to help them, you know, that I'm there to serve them, but they're serving me so much by that experience, you know. Yeah, it's wild.
It really is. It's very magical. So I'm curious to know if somebody is here listening right now and learning from you, you know, like myself, I mean, I'm your biggest student right now. So, how does one, if they are curious about really getting into, you know, becoming part of venture capital, really being more involved in something like this, like you're doing, what would one start to do to learn about, you know, maybe listening to this podcast would be the first step, but then after, you know, what could they continue to do to magnify their own intelligence and, you know, start creating a fund around them that really can attract the right people, or maybe being in partner with other, you know, venture capitalists? What does that type of map look like to you?
So for me, it goes away beyond venture capital. It really is about spending time understanding your values, because some people, and your values are so important because your superpowers are around that. So maybe you will be all about real estate, but through community, you know, or through regenerative agriculture and farms and on, or it's about solar energy. So your investments can be totally out of venture capital and still be full of meaning, you know, and it might be that you are way better served in private equity, like a growth stage things, or you really just like, I do the face because I don't like, but like ETFs and stocks. There's a lot of meaning there if you really analyze the investments from your values and you start backing them and checking reports. Doesn't mean you'll become like a full-time investor and that you're like looking at every report, but if you have good guidance from your banker or wealth manager, like once a year you can sit with them, make sure it is aligned with your values, and they will keep rebalancing, because ETFs need to be cleaned from time to time because they change a lot. So sometimes you thought you were investing in things that you really love and care and stand for, and soon enough, like it's all messed up. So it's important like to check those things. But again, it's about your values. So I love crypto since ever. I love venture capital. I don't love, I used to be my whole career as an investor studied in real estate. And because Brazil really needed low-income houses, so it had a lot of meaning for me, low-income houses. But as soon as I started investing in the US and it was condos, like luxury condos, it totally lost the meaning for me. It was just like an income generator. Like, and I prefer to be backing early stage founders, and I might lose money from time to time, but the ones that are winning will win amazingly. But because that's my superpower, right? So it comes fluidly because I love, you know, and I'm really backing them, like their skills, their willingness to change things for the better. I might not do so well backing like I can't say something I love that is something that I don't love, like a chain of McDonald's, you know, and buying like a bunch of like, but maybe that has a lot of meaning for someone that never had a chance to eat McDonald's when they were growing up, and they walk through one. It's like, oh my God, now I'm providing this. Like, you know, people have different meanings because they come from different places. And I think that's why it's so important to understand your values. It will come very easily because, you know, and I can send a PDF, like I'll send one for the end of the year that I'll make available that is super close to the what I do with my clients, the initial interview, because those are important questions to make when you are like creating your value aligned strategy. So I can help with that. Like I can share with you, and you share with the crowd to download later.
I love it. Yes,
That's a
please.
good, yeah, that's a good thing, because sometimes it feels very easy for me. Well, it's not so easy because people are not used to make those questions. So just having the guidelines can help a lot.
You know, I really love that you're talking about the values. Like, as I know, you're speaking at the Vested Summit this upcoming weekend in Istanbul, and I'm very grateful because this is something that where, you know, I'm going on sharing about the importance of values. And so how are we implying our own values within ourselves to then utilize this power and this grace and this connection of really influencing. So I'm very grateful that you're talking about this, because it just solidifies my intention of why I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and teaching about, running this little workshop about how important it is to really influence from a place of construct, of a place of foundation, a place of true principles, and then delivering those principles to your team, to your manifesto, to the creative potential that's allowing you to then enhance people's, founders, projects and deliverables that are going to ignite, a conscious ecosystem or economy. And I think that that's like, I just love, so thank you for this, because you just mirrored back to me
But what
something
you're
that,
providing is the best. Yeah, because that's what people need. The question, like a workshop, it's the best model, way better than a PDF, because PDF people don't stay accountable, if they're really engaging with you and going through the workshop, that is like doing like a whole interview process. It's mentoring, like you really make the right questions, you get the right answers, and then you start like a whole journey, a whole new path of of light, like really, because everything becomes so much brighter.
you're amazing. Thank you for this kind words. I want to ask you about this new startup you just launched, like last week.
Give
Tell me a
back.
little bit about it. I'm really excited for you to hear a little bit about it, and what's it doing, because I know it's doing amazing things. So please.
Here I have our branded bottle.
Yeah.
Give back. So I'm very proud of this company. I'm very humbled and flattered to be part of this company. It's a tech-enabled platform for giving strategies. So the whole thing, I believe but a lot of people already do investment strategies, right? They might not be value aligned, but they always have a strategy for the deployment. They have expectations of their returns. They treat as it should be treated, and when it comes to donations, people don't have a real management. They don't have a real intention. They just want to do good and they give. And by being exposed to the family members, my own donation process, friends, I realized, wow, we need to do better. If there's more than 1.5 million nonprofits in the US, just there's so many, and almost 500 billion donated every year, that it hasn't been truly measured, and donated, to charities, right? So charity donations, because there's even more just being donated without being counted, that we don't have the data. But the thing is, if you can treat your donations the same way you treat your investment, you probably achieve a way more, and you'll be proud of that. You find the meaning you want to find, instead of saying oh, nonprofits just, it's this black box. I don't know where the money is going. I don't know how things happen. I don't know if the team has the capacity to execute. I don't know if there's permission. There's just so many unknowns, that Give Back came with this very beautiful, visually engaging platform that you choose your values through sustainable development goals. So it's very colorful. You choose them. Then you go to step number 2, which is the teams, verticals. I can go from the SDG, good health and well-being, to vertical psychedelics, and then that will probably send me to maps. So suddenly I'm going from my SDG to one of my teams to a specific nonprofit that matches perfectly what I want, and the platform has this impact algorithm and this impact matchmaking. So by saying your goals of donations, and it might be a very small goal for year 1, but you have a more aggressive goal for year 3, the whole idea is that it will help you get in there, So, okay, you start with $50 this year, and then next year will be $250. And with these $50, you know exactly, if you want to back nonprofits that have an impact algorithm, that most of them in our platform have, you know exactly what those $50 went through. And then you start tracking. And I was like, okay, I managed to pay school for 1 year in Brazil for this kid. That's amazing. I want to do 3 kids next year. And I also want to build portion of a school somewhere else, So you start doing. And then maps, I think it's a good one. It's not tangible. You don't have the impact algorithm for something like maps. but if it has true meaning for you, on my case, I can work with that. You know, it's like, okay, I'll not know if we healed hundreds of people from mental health, but I know things are happening and that money is needed for the research and for the developments we need on that aspect. So there are nonprofits that maybe the donor will still back because it knows the nonprofit and knows like the cause and know you can't measure yet, but that's case by case, you know. So I think that's the beauty, like you see, and it's saying like, oh, this doesn't have an impact algorithm, but this is what they do and this is how we rate. And then we have done all the due diligence, just like as we will do in an investment. Like we analyze the leadership team, the management team, like the goals, like how they are spending the money, how their financials doing, blah, blah. Just as I will do in a VC when I'm wearing my VC hat, we did for the nonprofit. So we created like a very pragmatic approach that has still that intuitive touch that VCs need, is the same for nonprofit, you know. And even like when I see nonprofits these days, I think like the venture capital world, you have like the pre-seed, you have the seed, you have the series A, and you as a donor should decide, am I a believer of the pre-seed stage type of nonprofits, or I prefer like more series A. And by that, I mean, really like the size of revenue, how much money these nonprofits are raising year over year or getting from revenue if they have one, and how are they deploying. Like there's a lot of similarities on each stage, and which made it very easy then to adapt. It's fascinating to me that no one has done this before because it's needed, but secondly, because there's so much data. It's not that hard to do. It's just a lot of work, but it's such an important thing to do, you know? So it's
the fact that you created also an algorithm behind it, I think is a huge part. It's like, it talks about the principles of like, you know, just like Ray Dalio, you know, you bring up Ray Dalio earlier, these algorithms.
That's our CEO, my co-founder, Rochelle. She's also Brazilian. She's phenomenal. Because I have visions of things and concepts. She has been the most stellar executor that I've met in my life. She just makes it happen very quickly. Okay, that's
and I think this is gonna like not break, but like it's gonna rediscover the system. It can really impact algorithm, right? Like magic. I think it's a very, I think you should really share about it at the investment summit that you're speaking at. Just talk about it. I think it's super valuable.
It's so exciting. I'm so in love with this project. It's just, if you let me, like I'll talk only give back, because everything they're doing there or we are doing there is just so beautiful and so captivating, and it will be challenging. I always tell that the team, hey, don't think that because it's full of meaning and that we love what you're doing, that people will see it. It might take a few years until we get to the donations we want to get, you know, like, but we need to respect and meet people where they are, you know. It might take way longer than what we would like to, because it feels so perfect already, you know. But I'll share. Thank you for reminding me. I'll share it.
I think it's super valuable. I think it would be really good. So I know that we're kind of getting short on time here, but you know, I think that you have one of the most important roles in the world, which is being a mom. And I think that, tell me about how this, you know, as being a mother, as you know, being connected to, is it ocean or ocean?
Ocean, yes, ocean.
And so yes, so as this experience of motherhood has evolved for you, and you know, this magic that I see in your smile as you like just think of that unconditional love, how has that really given you even more of a life force to contribute to our future generation and the awareness of what we can leave behind? Because ultimately we're not going to be here forever, right?
Yes, 100%. First, ocean changed everything. My family members, like they call me the mama bear before I was a mom. So I always had this instinct of protecting, of caring, of loving unconditionally, because you do need to love unconditionally, like to do the work I do. So it was always there, but I thought I wouldn't be able to conceive a child. So I was even channeling that stronger to the family members, because it was my way of being my true self, you know. But now that I have Ocean, that I managed to like really conceive a child, wow, it's just mind blowing. It's the best thing. Like sometimes I'm just with him, and because people ask, oh, would you have a second one? And so, and I'm on my own, right? I'm like, oh, it feels like a lot to have a second one, but not just because of the word, it's just because it's so special what I'm living with him right now that I can't think of having one more, you know. It's like there's just so much we're going through, you know, that I don't have this need, maybe for the siblings, because having siblings, that's the only thing that comes to my mind sometimes. But like seriously, it's just so special. And I'm so present at work still that I'm like, no, I don't think I can truly make the time for another one. Like at least not this year, next year. Like I need to experience a way more of this with him to see if there would be room. But just because it's that special, you know, when I'm with him, it's our world, you know, it's the best thing. I'll never be able to put into words what he represents and what I feel with motherhood. It's out of this world.
You look super amazing and happy, and it's really beautiful to observe and watch and see like the connection that you have, you know, and the things that you do together. It's so magical to observe and just like pay attention to this. I think it's so special because I know the connection that I have with my parents. I know the connection that I have with my mother and my father, and the fun like that we create. So it's beautiful. Like, you know, as I'm speaking about it, like brings tears to my eyes because it's such a important foundation, which we've been both raised, right? So this translates into everything that, you know, we leave behind, right? And I think that having that awareness is such a gift. And, you know, don't create a story for the future. That's all I'm going to suggest, because you never know, you're going to, you know, some beautiful thing is going to come up, and
Yes.
something is going to create, and, you know, no expectations, but allow this magic to unfold. And you know how important it is. So.
No, and back to your point, like one thing that gave me so much perspective was exactly that. Like you mentioned your journey with your family, and now when I'm with him, because I know how moms feel now. Oh my God, I just like, I get, oh my God, like in a few years, like everything changes, you know, but I'll never forget like what I'm feeling right now. And I know moms never forget. And that's why they have like this absurd amount of love, doesn't matter what we do, because it's so out of this world, you know, it's so strong and so big that it's like, wow, my mom, like I always think about my mom and I was like, wow, I should have, she's alive, thank God, because I can do all these things for her still, but it's like I could have been so much better to her because she loved me so much since day one, you know. And my father was amazing, but like the mom, it's different, you know, like moms feel something that I think men unfortunately will never feel. It came from you, you know, you spend all that time with the baby inside and then he's out, and there's just like this, wow, it's ridiculous. So like appreciate your parents and appreciate your mom, because moms they go for so
And I think
much,
this is
so much love.
I think this part that you share right now, I think this is like, you know, it's difficult to ever understand how to, as a man, to bear a child, right? Or to give life, right? In that capacity. So it's like this experience is very profound. You know, I can imagine, right? And having compassion, I think, for yourself is why, you know, you're so, you know, able to express yourself in such a powerful way, right? So this compassion, I think when we have compassion in ourselves, as anything that we do in our lives, we can then apply it to, you know, the external world. So last question before we go: if you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
I love the beach and I love ocean. I will just go spend the last days with him, you know, just doing what we do normally, you know, watch the little things, just tell stories for him, listen to his story through his eyes, you know, just be with him. Like if there was 3 days, I would just, 100% be. Before, I remember what people would ask, like, what would be a perfect day look like for me? It was Burning Man. I was like, oh, I love the freedom of Burning Man. I love that. I love the excitement, the hugs. Now it's really like, you just stay sitting with ocean and everything makes sense and everything is so exciting and beautiful. That's exactly what I would do. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Ba, so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time.
I have one for you before we go. What
Please.
does wealth mean to you?
Wealth is an internal abundance. So wealth is what we have inside. Wealth to me is the most important thing is how we express ourselves, what we stand for, how we live our life. Because the only thing that I personally can do is translate my energy to somebody. I don't ever want to expect anything from anybody. And wealthy means the principles that guide you will be the ones that define you.
Beautiful. Wow. You were a very joyful presence of energy today. So thank you for sharing this energy. It was really nice to be here with you.
It's just a mirror of what you have inside of you.
Thank you. Wow.
Blessings. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate you.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to The Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify, and please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode, and make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does. More importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, check out the alignment course that I've created. It's seriously there for you to take advantage of at www.ericbalance.com/alignment. See you on the next show.